Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. Episode 14. Bill and Michael here talking about some sort of, bring on the light. But we're talking about our own businesses. We start off with something fun to get you thinking, so make sure you are subscribed to both of our channels. You can find all of that in the description and add some commentary to what we're talking about. So first, let me ask Bill, how are you doing?
I am doing just peachy. I'm like we talked about previously. Had a good time. It's been a very eventful week, so it's very nice out. And actually, I did want to share with you before we connected. We did have a very short thunderstorm roll through here, or heavy winds or something. I didn't even know that too. Like I was waiting to connect, and then next thing I know, hearing the pitter patter, I'm like, uh-oh.
I thought we were over this. Why is it coming back?
Yeah. So, but it's all good now. Clear skies.
It's been feeling like the late summer kind of feel of like warm weather, but then Saturday, which is when this comes out, it's supposed to rain. So I'm like,
that's
weird.
Fun.
Yeah. But I'd love to start off with, what's a bad physical accident you've had that comes to mind? What happened in it? What was the recovery like? And then after, so we'll answer those first.
Yeah.
What did you learn from it, if anything? Because when I was thinking through, I'm like, sometimes things just happen and you're like, I couldn't have done anything. But other times I'm like, maybe something interesting came from that. But
right.
To start off, tell us about a bad physical accident you've had, which is always dark. We had a community call, and instead of like, what was your best travel story? I was like, best nightmare travel story.
Yeah.
So keeping along those lines, what's a terrible accident you've had?
Well, there's two. There's actually one of the first ones that comes to my mind, and then I'll share them both here. Is one, I was a kid riding my bicycle, and you know how when you come across these like bumps, either in roots or the sidewalk, wherever it is, something to help give you you got to pop your wheel and take that ride. So I remember doing that, and I apparently popped my wheel too early because I brought it up to avoid the bump or to kind of take advantage of the so-called ramp that was there. And right as my tire came down, hit the crack or the curb or what, I don't remember specifically what it was, hit that spot that I was actually trying to jump. And I went flying over my bike. Luckily, my teacher, I was hugely blessed by this, my teacher was apparently doing whatever she was, because I'm sitting there on the ground crying. It's like, my arms get up, scraped up and everything. And, my body sore from hitting the turf. And she just comes pulling up in her truck. He's like, Bill, you all right? He's like, no, you want me to take you home? Yeah. And so she just went around the block. I wasn't too far. But, I was so brutal from that. And ever since then, when I was riding my bicycle at the time, I would more or less avoid those jumps. I would go off, like when you go off a curb or off a bridge or something, I would do that. But I would never go up or try to pop over a sidewalk bump or anything anymore, and always try to go around it. But
this was last year, right?
Yeah. No, I was I don't know. I was
young
teenager, 14, 15, somewhere around there.
Okay.
But one of the big ones that popped in my head was a couple years ago. Well, I've had my car that I have now for maybe about 5 years. 5 or 6 years, and it was in my previous car. So maybe about 7-8 years ago, roughly, it was here in Ohio. It was cold, and I was driving to work, and as far as I could tell, the roads were fine, had no problems. And so I'm driving to work, and it's pretty much a straight shot on this road, and I'm like, okay, well, this person in front of me is going really slow. I'm impatient. Let's go ahead and go around him. So I try to go around him, I floor it, and then as I floor it, I'm kind of doing a whole fishtail thing. I was like, oh, this is not good. So you're not supposed to tap the brakes on ice. Apparently there was ice on the roads. I couldn't tell from the driving. I don't know what was up. And I knew that, but I did a little love tap to try to get some sort of slow down traction so that way I could get in the right lane. And I spun my car out of control. I pretty much did a 180. And bumped into the ditch next to me, and it just slammed down hard. Car was still intact, a lot of dirt and grass in it, but really hit my back really hard, and I was like, ow. I was there for like 5 minutes before I actually decided to move or to get my car out.
Were you able to drive it out, or you had to get it?
Yeah, I was able to drive. It's just,
okay.
It's just I was sitting there sore from that impact.
Yeah.
And so I got a hold of my boss. It's like, I'm not coming in. I just spun my car out, and like for like the longest time, and now, I mean, which thankfully we haven't had too much ice on the roads the past few years. But I mean, I'm like super careful with that. I mean, my back was sore, like my lower back, where your belt would be.
Yeah.
Was completely sore for quite a few years on and off. Like the first day when the event happened, I laid on the couch. It hurt to even move. So I ended up having to go to a chiropractor a few times, and they fixed everything up best they can. Now I'm almost 35 years old, and I still hurt there. But not because of that. It's just because I'm getting old. But I think that was really one of the biggest impactful accidents I've been in, and I was like, okay, well, if it's cold out, like below 30 or close to, or there's any sort of ice, I'm not passing. So
yeah, I was like, well, maybe God was teaching you patience. So it's quite not a fun way to learn that.
Right.
And you're like, no, it's just don't break on ice.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, yeah. But yeah,
a bit of breaks.
I feel like the people I follow behind on the freeway that are the worst have those Lyft and Uber stickers. And I'm like, your job is to drive, and you cannot drive to save yourself. Like today, they kept braking on the freeway, and there was no one in front of them, and we were already going well below the speed limit. And so I just went around. But I was just like, Lyft sticker. And then he had another sticker, caution, this car makes stops. I'm like, that's for when you're picking up people, not on the freeway. We're not supposed to be stopping, but... Oh, that kills me. Anytime I see it, I'm like, they drive for a living and they cannot drive.
Yeah. Well, and that actually reminds me of a little theory. You know how old people are stereotypically the slowest drivers in the entire world? Well, I thought of this.
All the way up here.
Yeah, I thought of this a couple years ago. I don't remember like how it clicked or why, but I was like, I know why they drive so slow. It's not because they're old, but it's because of how crazy everybody else drives. And I get it. Like, I mean, when I first started driving, I was like the super careful guy. Or my friend, he actually helped teach me how to drive. He was like criticized, like, Billy, you need to keep going. You need to go. And now, which I don't know how bad it is now, but we're always telling the story about how when he gets in my car, used to get in my car, he'd be holding the handle because of how I drive. So I completely shifted.
I feel like that's definitely a parent thing too, when they're just like,
yeah.
And they're like, where's the handle? I'm like, you're fine. Don't worry. I'll get us there. We'll be alive.
So,
but yeah, I think for mine, it also involves going over handlebars. So I feel like those are the worst accidents ever. And I was in college, my third year, first day of school, of course, and I had a push scooter, and I would scooter down to the bus, take the bus to school. I was on our street, which I've grown up on, like since I was 2. So like I know the bumps, the cracks. I know everything on the street. I've grown up riding the same scooter. And I learned it was my pant leg got caught in like the wheels plus a crack that sent me over. And it happened so fast because people were like, why didn't you stop yourself with your hands? That's like a God-given instinct. And my hands were scraped up, but my chin still hit. And I just remember coming up, spitting out what I thought were rocks. Chipped teeth. And then I had been watching some like Greek fighting show where like they'd get punched and spit out teeth. I'm like, that's what I've immediately flashed to. I'm like, these are not rocks, these are teeth. I'm like, it's nothing like the movie. It was like a horrified, like, I just really hurt myself and I destroyed my mouth now. And then my chin had a big gash and was bleeding. So I had to go all the way back home. My mom had a Bible study during that time, so a bunch of ladies, and I'm just like trying not to cry. Like the tears are coming just from the pain of just like, it hurts, but keeping it together. They bandaged me up. I got to school, the university. Then I went to the pool because I had lifeguarded there, and I knew they would have better first aid supplies.
Right.
And then I looked at my manager and just started crying. It was like bleeding through, and she had been a lot of these like water polo because she had done water polo, like they knew injuries, and so she took a look at it and she's like, you need stitches. And I'm like, oh, I need stitches on the first day. So they had a health center at school, so I like booked an appointment. They patched me up. I went to my first class. In between classes, I went and got stitches in my chin, which I love all that medical stuff. To me, it's so fascinating. So like the pain you're in, I'm like, oh, I've never had stitches. So I'm like, what goes on with that? And so and all the I think some of the nursing students were there, so they're like, let us see too. I'm like, sure, we can all look at my chin as we sew it shut. But just went from that to then the next class because on the first day of classes, they've gotten better, but if you don't show up, you have like a point against you and they might give your seat away to someone else. So I was like, I need to show up. But it ended up like spraining my jaw is what the dentist said. $70 to look at my mouth that couldn't open because it was swollen shut. And it was like weeks until like my teeth were not set. Like your teeth are like this. It was more like that, which bugged the crap out of me. Chewing gum, chewing anything, which I couldn't for a long time. So I was just eating so much oatmeal. And then what I learned from it though was not to wear those pants when I scootered. This is the first thing. But then mostly it showed me, in other countries and in history, when they don't have good dental care, it leads to like starvation and death. And like it really showed me because I'm messed up my teeth where I didn't want to eat. And I was like, what's the point of eating? It hurts to eat. I can't eat. And so it gave me a glimpse of that whole thing of like your teeth are falling out and have infections and all of that. And you can't eat, you can't chew the nutrients. You can't get that. Then it was like, oh, it makes sense. But it was terrible. And to this day, I have like a scar. You can't see it when I have a beard, but a scar that I have a cleft chin, which already, gross, but it's more on one side because of the scar tissue. And I'm like, it's uneven now. Yeah. So with a beard, it looks a little better because you can't tell, but running through the background of my mind, I'm like, this side of my chin is longer because of that stupid scooter accident.
Yeah.
But let us know in the comments.
What's your worst?
What's a terrible accident you've had?
Yeah, there's quite a few more that just popped into my mind too. So I'll save those for another time.
But I thought from here it would be interesting. So you have mentioned you have a course on mentorship and mentors. Yeah. So you've kind of done a lot within that. At my young adult group at my church, we were going through Philippians, and I don't even know if it specifically mentioned mentorship, but it's this whole idea of like Paul is mentoring Timothy, and within your life, it came to this question in the small groups of like, do you have a mentor in your life? In what ways do you have it? Are you looking for one? Do you have one? And it kind of got this good discussion going. And I know in our own small businesses, many times people have business mentors. Like right. I have a business mentor from that program I'm in, which is almost up. I've got one more call to go. But I thought it would be interesting because if people are watching this, when it relates to, a mentor in your own life, be it business-wise or on like the church side, your personal life, I think it's interesting to talk about of maybe start off with like what makes a good mentor and how do we find that? Because as soon as we start talking about it, people should be going like, yes, I need this. I need this for my business, for my personal life. But there's usually a disconnect. And did I say something wrong, Bill?
No, it's how I'm going to answer that question.
Okay, go.
I have a course on my website that answers them.
Which I know. We'll plug that in. And that'll be part of the plug. But
yeah, I would say my personal opinion, in fact, I was actually talking to my pastor because I want to get a mentorship program plugged into the church. And so I was sharing him, my personal opinion, while you can have informal mentorship, I think there's a lot of benefits to having a formal mentorship. And the big thing that I think with formal mentorships, or at least we'll take the church example, is that it shows it shows those who are outside of the church and even inside of the church how important it is for you to come alongside people and to help to equip them in whatever specific field. For example, within the church, the Christian faith and whatever type of ministry role that you have. But in general, I would personally say that every person needs a mentor and every person needs to be mentored. And I would probably lean more into the formal type of mentorship. And I mean, which
is what for people that don't know?
Well, just an unofficial. You can work it however you like, but I would personally say informal mentorship. I would say my grandfather was my. Some various coworkers or supervisors I've had over the years. Those were informal, but formal would be more of the recognition that, yes, you are my mentor, or yes, I am your mentor. And I
like
think
you're meeting up on a regular basis.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of benefit to that because you have one particular person that you can go to figure whatever field it is, whether it be ministry, whether it be operating businesses, taxes, medical. I mean, a mentor itself is somebody who's helping to train you, essentially either to take over their position or to, expand. In the same field, however that would happen, that's, dependent on your relationship with the mentor. But the benefit of a formal is you have a designated person to go to for that. You have somebody that can help keep you, on track with these things, somebody who can hold you accountable. And, like you said, you can meet once a week and say, hey, here's what I figured out. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm learning. What's going on here, and so on. I mean, there's a lot of benefits to that, and it also shows to have that dedication. The one who's being mentored, it shows that they are serious about wanting to learn or to fill whatever role it is that they're going for, and the one who is doing the mentor, or being the one who is the mentor, is showing that yes, I am serious about my commitment to you, and to help you be the best that you possibly can in this particular role. So,
yeah, I think that's great. And I think what we had talked about, the leader was saying, like, it's specifically they're talking into your own life. Because I had brought up, like, I don't have one right now on the life side of things. Like, I think that would actually be great. It's one of those, like, yes, I know it's important. But I said, like, certain podcasts I listen to, they are in a Christian organization, and they have sons that are my age, around our age, so early 30s with family. So I was listening to their podcast to get the few years ahead of me, and then I listened to theirs as like talking about married life, having big families, like what they've learned. But that would be considered more informal because they're giving good advice, ways to live life, but they are not talking to me. They do not know my life. And I think what I always come back to, like for people listening, is you definitely want someone who's further ahead than you, because a friendship, like Bill and I can be friends and we can give wisdom to each other, but that is a little bit different when you're at least thinking of traditional mentorship.
Right.
But maybe it's some other area in life where I'm like, I've been doing karate for 10 years. I'll mentor you, Bill. but in general, it's someone I would say who is like older than you, more experienced than you, and is, I would say, at least for me, I want them to be where I want to be headed towards. So that's something where when I think of, and I think maybe this is why it's tricky for me to maybe find one, is because if I'm looking at the life side of things, like I want them to have the same morals, values, show that they are dedicated to their faith, but I want them to have a marriage and have a family and probably to be an entrepreneur or have their own business. Because for someone to speak into my life, that is what I'm really looking for. Like, how can I hit these goals while being down this path? And I think you can argue you don't always have to be, and it can be close, but that's kind of what, as a group, we were talking about. That's what I shared. I'm like, I feel like everything in my life, I have so many like prerequisites, but I had told the leader, I was like, I think it would be cool, kind of what you were mentioning, to do. I said, like, during the summer, like, have people that have gone through the church, some, like, the pastor says these are good men, that would be, and then who of the young adults want to do this for a summer. So like keep it short, because I think a lot of people get scared of these, like, it's never gonna end, I'm gonna see this kid, or I have to talk with this older person, even though once you're in it, it's so good and it's so worth it. But I had told him, like, I think a lot of people put pressure on the mentee, if you would call it that, like us, like, why aren't you guys finding mentors? And I'm like, put some pressure on those above us, because like I don't even know where to start most times. So what would you say, just from your own experience, or like snippets of what you have in the course, for someone who's listening? Because I can talk kind of on the business side, but for like the life and church side of things, when we're looking for mentors, so we know we're interested, we need one, how do you find one?
and well, that's kind of tricky. Like I think from my personal experience, mentorship, well, specifically within the church, that's kind of where the course itself is focused on. But I did try to leave the course itself kind of open a little bit, to where, here's some general rules of thumb of mentorship. because of the different fields. It doesn't just have to be, a Christian mentorship. It doesn't have to be a ministry, pastoral, and stuff. Like, it can be medical, technical, and alphabetical, and all sorts of other diabolicals, whatever others.
Diabolical mentorship, take over the world. Ooh,
I was trying to think of monocles and. But anyways, the point is they can be anything. So I try to leave it open-ended, and but when you're looking for a mentor, and I think I think it's lacking, really. I think the reason people don't know where to look for a mentor is because the idea of mentorship is not there. We can do coaching, but that's a completely different thing. A coach is pretty much, for the most part, encouraging you to figure it out for yourself. A mentor, on the other hand, is there to help you to figure it out. I'm trying to figure out A, B, and C. I don't know what direction to go. Mentor, who has that experience, says, well, do this, and then you'll find your answer. But within the church, I would say, specifically, I would say to go to your pastor and say, hey, I'm desiring a mentorship for this. I desire, I have this passion, whatever it might be, and it doesn't specifically have to be pastoral or ministry. We'll go with that. You have a congregation filled with so many people. You have doctors, you have farmers, you have nerds, you have factory workers, you've got bikers, you've got nerds. You've got business.
Bill needs a nerd, right? Yeah. You just listed everything we need: a bike, riding, farming, nerd. For Bill.
Did that on purpose. But you have all these different types of people, and so and the pastor, they can help you find somebody. It's like, well, I'm looking for somebody that could help me with this. Okay, well, go talk to this guy over here or this girl over here. They've been in it for 20, 30, 40 years. So that's a benefit to that, but. How to find one is really just like you said, find somebody who's older than you. I would say find something. My personal minimum would be like 10 years older than you, or 10 years more experience would be a better way of putting it, because you can find somebody who's younger that still knows more about whatever the field is than you do. So, we'll stick with that. My personal preference is somebody who has 10 years of experience in whatever that is, or close to whatever it is, wherever you can get. And say, hey, I see that you're doing a great job with this. You know what you're doing. I'd like to learn, either to go my own direction, or perhaps to be your successor, or to be your assistant, whatever it might be. And go from there, and see that dedication. And like you mentioned, a kind of a summer. My personal preference would be to, use that time period of 3-4 months. Have that be a designated required time of commitment to the mentorship relationship. But, hey, okay, we've committed this time. Do you want to keep going? It's like, absolutely. And I think for the most part, if it's a good mentorship, I think that will happen. But I would personally say, if you're getting involved in mentorship, find yourself somebody who knows what they're talking about, and be ready to dedicate time to it.
Awesome. So. Yeah, I think that's really helpful. I would say on the business side, all of those things of you want them older, more experienced, where you want to go. And I think from what I've seen, so I had joined a program, I think on the church side too, as you get more involved, say you go to the different Bible studies, the different groups, you come into contact with a lot of people. Yeah. And then you kind of pick up like, ooh, I really connect with this person. And usually that's what I would go off of. Like, if you understand my temperament, my humor, like that to me means like, we will already be going down a better path, because right. I don't have to like be careful of what I say and like rephrase things a million times. Like, they'll understand me. But even in the program I was in, the mentor I have now from that is like the main coach from that. But I really liked that he was kind, caring. The feedback he gave, he was always not quick to speak, which is good. Like, that to me is like wisdom, and like would say what needed to be said, but in a nice way. Where some of the other coaches, I'm like, I just don't like you. Like, you just rub me the wrong way. And like, I know you have a lot of experience, but I don't like you. And I want to like someone that I'm learning from. And it turns out this mentor does have a lot of kids. He's married. He's created a life so that he can be with his family. So I don't know if he has the same values and morals. I know he's more on the conservative side. Just from most entrepreneurs in this program are like, we do everything more on the organic, natural side because the government and everything's trying to kill us. So I'm like, good. Like, I agree.
One of
I
us.
don't know. I don't know how far down the rabbit hole I go with that, but it's better. But I think when even people I've interviewed on the podcast talk about, most of them have a free intro call. And even in your own life, if it's in person, like, can we meet up for a coffee or a phone call and like kind of talk about what you're looking for, put the expectations out there, because you can pretty quickly, if you are a human and can communicate, pick up like, do you get a good feeling from this? Can you see where it would go?
Right.
Or maybe you have that first consult call with on the business side and you're just like, no, yeah. I don't like him, or like he doesn't have enough experience. And that's something I want to head down eventually on like the mentorship road. And it's that weird, like right now I can help people who maybe have that passion and want to start a business, but I can't really mentor people who are further ahead of me because I'm like, I don't know, I'm still trying to figure out some of this.
Yeah.
But I think even in our own lives, that's why they always want young adults to help with like junior high and high school, because us being in our 30s, well, I'm almost 30. I just skipped my whole age. I'm just like, I'm 30 now, but yeah, half a year to go. But we have a lot more wisdom, and like we can remember still what it was like to be in maybe middle school or high school, and we can pour into that. But, you know, maybe even early 20s, it's kind of hard to be like, do this. But yeah, go ahead, Bill. Are you going to say you don't remember any of those years?
No, I was just thinking, being
out.
that we have, more wisdom in the 30s and so on, looking back at, 12, 13, 15, whatever age this group is, the teenage group, I was thinking of, looking at these people in that age group and just thinking is like, oh my, I remember how dumb I used to be, or I remember how I can't believe I used to be this.
To be a very patient mentor, right?
Yeah. I used to be one of them.
Yeah, and I think maybe what I'd close this out with is nowadays I'm very attuned to when people mention, like briefly, let's say I have a mentor and they keep talking, I'm like, ooh, this person has a mentor. And to me, that raises them on a pedestal, which we shouldn't do. But like in that sense of like you were saying, like it means they are serious. Like the mentor I have, he mentions he has mentors. I'm like, you have a ton of great stuff going for you. Like you have it figured out. But he still sees the need that like he still needs to be learning and growing. Yeah. And he has people, I think he's probably in his 40s, that are above him that have, I don't know exactly what he wants to do, because that's not really what the mentor necessarily tells you. He's helping me. But I always am like inspired by that, and really pushes me to be like, Michael, you need to have a mentor. So like, even though this is going to be ending with him, I had told him last 2 calls ago, I'm like, just so you know, I do want to keep things up with you. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I see the value in having this. And so that's something I need to do on the personal side too, because I think it would be fun to have like an in-person, someone I can see.
Right, yeah.
To meet up. But any closing thoughts on the mentor side of things?
No, I mean, I think that's a very good point. And I guess since we kind of plugged it in, the mentorship course that I have, there are plans to go back and revise it and also add to it. But what I'm saying this in case, other people who are listening want to take it. I'm actually holding off on doing all of that right now, because what I want is the audience, students, consumer, whoever you want to call them, to take the course, get something out of it, and help to critique. Like right now, it's my critique. So I would like you to take the course if you're interested, and see what you liked about it, see what you don't liked about it, what's missing, and so on, and go from there. I mean, I've got a short list, but need some more feedback on that. And there is a price to it, but technically it's free. I had to actually put a price on it because the workbook itself I have for sale on another location, so I kind of had to play fair. I can't provide something 100% free when it's not 100% free over here. So the course is free, the workbook is not. So the price when you sign up, that is paying for the workbook itself. So
awesome. Yeah, and we're actually at the half hour, so I think that's probably a good way to end. I'll go ahead and add that to the description, and you guys will just have to come next week to hear what we're working on in our business, because I think some of these are interesting, because for me it's very applicable for your business. Like you have a course and you're going to be working on that, but also as a business owner, as a man who wants to grow and get better, I feel like that's applicable for us. And for those listening, is like, that's what I would kind of leave as encouragement of like, what have been your experiences with mentorship? Maybe you don't have it, and I would say before I joined this program, I have not really had that formal mentorship, and any new thing in life is going to be uncomfortable. So going up to an older, if it's you're male or female, but I would say should be the same gender.
Yeah.
Going up to an older man and being like, hi, like I'm used to Instagram messaging people and texting, and it's going to be a little uncomfortable, but I think if they are the right person, and if you find the people that are in the right mind frame, you get over that really quickly. And it goes from like, this was scary to like, just think if you could be so much further in life just from meeting up with someone once a week.
Yeah.
Like, it's so worth getting through some of those uncomfortable bits.
And that's the huge blessing, is to having that mentor. It can actually help push you along. Like, I mean, you're trying to figure something out. They already have an answer. Okay, that's something I can check off my list. So something that would take you 5 years to do on your own can take you 5 months with their help, or however you'd like to go with that. So.
Yeah, and even when it comes to then the value, if you are like having to pay for the course, which go in and pay for it, it's not a big deal at all.
Yeah.
But even on the business mentorship side, you're probably going to have to pay for that. Like, if you think of it in that frame of like, would take you so much longer, then I'm like, the value is there.
Yeah.
And you can't be cheap. That's what I'm learning. Get out of that poor man mentality, Michael. But yeah, I think that's good. I think this was great. So we'll leave it there. So
all right.
Check out the description, and we'll see you guys later.
Later.